to the guys that were pushing the comprehensive immigration reform. And I said, here. I said, write me the bill you want. Whatever that bill is, put anything you want in it. Here's the pen, you do it. And let me tell you what you already know. No matter what you write, somebody will break that law. Are you going to come back in here 5 years from now after they've broken the law you have written and say we ought to give them amnesty and let them all go for that? And there was silence. One of the biggest supporters of that bill came up to me afterwards and he said, that's the best question anybody's ever asked because they can't answer it. And so I think it's kind of a travesty to what we've seen in our country. If we can't control our own borders, how in the world can we do security around the world? I've got an A rating with Numbers USA, which is probably one of the top immigration organizations in the country. I think it's important that we enforce the laws we have. It is a travesty to watch the president come out and try with an executive order to overturn the law of the country. He's done it in so many different areas. Immigration is one that just glares at us. Final thing I'll tell you is this. We talked about what can we agree on and not agree on working with Hillary Clinton or President Obama. I've gone to the immigration debate and said, look, let's say everybody disagrees. The one thing we ought to agree on is if you are here illegally and you're a member of a violent criminal gang, we ought to at least agree we can take you and deport you. There is a provision now, temporary protected status, that says if you come from certain countries, there is nothing law enforcement can do to you, even if you're here illegally. We had a situation in Massachusetts where there were some people here involved in MS-13. They were here illegally. Law enforcement knew they were here illegally, and here's what they did. They came on a yard one day, and they were beating up this man's son, who was 17 years old. He simply came in and pushed them off his son and told them to leave his son alone. They got so mad that the next day, they came back and got his daughter, who was 13, 14 years old, but also mentally and physically disabled. She was in a wheelchair and mentally disabled too. Took her to a field and brutally raped her over and over and over again as payback to this guy. If the Massachusetts or the Boston police had wanted to arrest these guys before, knowing that they were there illegally and that they were a member of violent group, they could not have done it. I wrote a gang bill that passed the House overwhelmingly that said at least if you're here illegally and you're a member of a violent criminal gang, we can get you out of here. Do you know that the Senate would not even take it up and pass it because they said it went too far? That's the kind of thing that we have to turn back in our country. How do you think we can fix Social Security? Will we? I think that Social Security, we have to look at Social Security and one, make sure Social Security dollars are staying for Social Security. And one of the big things that we've had, as you guys know, that they talk about these accounts, they're not accounts. I mean, they're just ledger sheet items. So what happens is the next generation is always paying Social Security cost for the previous generations. And at some point in time, you have to start to say, all right, we're boxing this off. Social Security dollars are going to go in there. We're not going to rob them to pay anything else. They're going strictly for Social Security. I think, one of the things that we have to remember is whenever we do these reforms, and we've got to do a lot of reforms in mandatory spending. Medicare is probably one of the biggest ones. But I think as you look at Social Security, once you've made a commitment to people to have something, they're relying on it, you've got to draw a line in the sand and say, we can't come back on that commitment. If we're going to do any changes, it needs to be to people that aren't in that system already. And I think that's important for us to do in Social Security. What my big fear is they're going to continue to rob Social Security to pay other things. Let me tell you the big payoffs I think we're going to see. Puerto Rico right now, they're in huge financial problems. I think you're going to see a major move to bail them out. But the big one that's coming is going to be union pension plans, because a lot of the union pension plans are in huge financial trouble, and you watch how they try to get a way to try to bail those plans out. That's the kind of thing that can take out something like Social Security more than just the actuarial dollars that are going in it. The last one is, when was the last appropriations bill passed? Why do you think that is? We have every year 12 appropriations bills that, look, for as long as I can remember, they get locked down in the Senate, and the Senate wasn't getting them out. Here's the good news I can tell you, though. I think this year they're going to get out. They're going to get out through regular order. The Senate has come over and told us that they're going to make sure that they allocate the time on the floor. That's one of the big problems. When you don't pass those bills, then you get everything thrown into one major bill. Nobody knows what's in that bill. I really am optimistic we're going to see the House get all their bills out this year, appropriations bill. The Senate will take them up, and I'm hoping that we'll get back to a kind of a regular order to get those spending bills out. Remember, it's not just the budget bill. Budget bill's a little different than the Congress. It's kind of a guide. The appropriations bills are the key bills that get out. Okay. Did I leave out anything that anybody?
There's question on
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Good. Time for a couple more.
Okay. Thank you.
Many of them are repeats.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Here's a good. Will you raise the debt ceiling or hold the line? Since I've been in office, the debt ceiling has been raised 15 times. I voted against it 10 times. The times that I did not vote, I voted against it. See you, John. I voted against it this last in this bipartisan budget act because we were extending it to 2017. Remember, on the debt ceiling, sometimes what you have is this. It's great just to say we're going to vote against the debt ceiling every time, but the debt ceiling is not like a credit card. In other words, it's not like saying, okay, we're going to raise this so we can borrow more money. These obligations are sometimes already out there. Here's what I've been looking at each time on that vote. One, I think you need to make the debt ceiling, if you're going to raise it, a shorter period of time so you can monitor what's happening. But the big thing is this, national defense. That's what I look at each time. What I don't want to do is have something that is going to stop the pay going to our men and women in uniform, or that's going to impact what we're doing on our platforms and those things, because overall, that increases the cost to taxpayers. It doesn't lower the cost to taxpayers. But I think it's something we need to be very careful about. Like I said, that's why I voted against it 10 different times. When are you going to balance the budget so we can start paying down the debt? I think we should have started balancing the budget before we started getting this debt out. As I've told you, I think we should have a balanced budget amendment. What do you think about the bathroom law in North Carolina? Do you see it coming to Virginia? I see it going everywhere, because here's what's happening. It's this political correctness that's taken over the country right now. It's getting almost every single place that I see. And look, you can be you can be in a situation where you be polite to people and kind to people, but we don't have to restructure every single basic norm we've had in this country and that we've had, quite honestly, around the world for centuries of time. And that's where I see this political correctness going now. Last one that they have is this: how are you addressing the issue of you're moving into the district just to run for the seat? Why can't you run for your own seat? I think, first of all, remember, one of my opponents that's been raising that the most moved into his House district so he could run for a seat. But let me tell you, that doesn't matter. Scott Ridgell the other day said something that I think was appropriate. He said it's not about where House is, it's where ships are and where jobs are. And the bottom line is this: when I decided to do this, I didn't come up with this idea. Scott Ridgell called me first, said, "You've got to do this. We can't lose this." I had over 100 businesses that then called and said, "If you don't do this, we're going to lose our jobs." I was in one meeting where a man stood up and said, "I have 250 jobs that count on me, count on you every day to be here. You can't not do this." I had another guy that stood up and said, "I have 1,000 jobs." And he said, half those people don't even know who you are. But if you can't go to work every day, they can't go to work every day. And here's what happens. That becomes a Richmond seat. My passion, I've told you, I've said it a lot, is Hampton Roads. I've lived here all my life. I believe in these military things that are here. That's what I want to fight for, the jobs that are here, the military that's here. You know, I've heard people say, well, you could win in that seat. Look, it's a 22% favor of the Democratic party. There is no sitting member of Congress right now, House or Senate, that is in a 22% district who's won that district. You just can't do it. But I don't mind just leaving. But here's what happens and the consequences if I did. That prayer caucus where we've been fighting those things all over, well, does it completely fall apart? Maybe not, but it wasn't there before I came, and it certainly isn't going to have the clout and power it has now. Would we lose a huge spot on the Armed Services Committee? You bet. Will it impact our jobs with Florida and those other states? You bet. It's a big difference between being at the front of the line, being in the back of the line. There's a real good chance that I become the first Virginia chairman of the Armed Services Committee in the House. We've never had a Virginian that was there. That's a big deal for our region, big deal for national security. But here's the final line. It is, my whole life has been based on defending and protecting the principles I believe in. You ask anybody who knows me, I'm not talking about people who run robocalls against me, I'm talking about people who know me. That's why they overwhelmingly are coming down here. When my two opponents, one of them went to the Freedom Caucus, and they asked the Freedom Caucus, most conservative members of the House, they asked them to support them in this race, and they listened to them until they found out it was me. And they terminated the conversation and said, absolutely not. We would never support anybody against him. The other one went to some of the military guys on there, including a former, I believe, commander of SEAL Team 6, and said, will you support me? As soon as he found out it was me, I can show you the text. His word is a little more explicative, but he immediately sent me a $5,000 check to my campaign and said, we cannot afford to lose you, whatever. The chairman of the Armed Services Committee was asked what's the most important race in the country this year. He said, Randy Forbes, if we lose him, we can't replace him for 10 years on national security. So why am I doing this? Because I believe in these principles. I believe in this fight. I haven't changed them in all the years I've been doing this. They wouldn't change if I lived 8 miles to the east or 8 miles to the west. And I can't believe other people believe that they would change their principles if they just moved 8 miles over. So that's why we're fighting for this, is why we believe in it. I hope, though, that we will not just get your vote. We need your support in the visions we're fighting for, because I'll tell you, these are important to our country. And I close by just saying this. I was with President Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, a short time ago. I met with him on a number of different occasions. And he said this. He said, it's like the whole world is shaking, and we don't know what's going to be standing. I think he's right. The whole world is shaking. But you and I need to make sure we're embracing those principles that have kept America strong for so many years. I think if we do, I think then we'll have a great future. But the price of our failure is far too great. So thank you all for letting me do this. I'm gambling here now. Okay.
It is 102578.
Nobody?
102578. Yeah, oh, we have 25. And I'd like to thank Congressman Forbes for coming this morning.
Thank you.